Good morning, and thank you for joining us for this advocacy webinar. I'm Nathan Krebs, Communications Manager here at Prevention Action Alliance, and I'm here today with Marcie Seidel, our Executive Director, and Jean-Philippe Dorval, the Manager of Administrative Support Services here at PAA. Without any further ado, we're going to go ahead and get started. Marcie, if you want to take us away.
Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this webinar on this beautiful November day where it's getting cool, and I think there's snow coming our direction, and I've heard in some corners of Ohio there's already snow. So we're moving into a new season, and when we move into a new season, not only through the weather, but also in the legislative world. And when we say that, we now know after last week's election that we do have a new administration coming in. We knew there would be one. We were just unsure who it would be. And it is the DeWine. The Attorney General, Mike DeWine, will be taking over as governor. He is governor-elect for the state of Ohio. He, as most newly elected individuals in a very important position like that, is wasting no time getting started and has already identified 3 key staff individuals that will be heading up the transition and his administration as it takes hold in January. Laurel Dawson is his Director of Transition Committee. She's been with him for many, many years, back when he was Lieutenant Governor, and then he was Senator. She was a key member of his staff, so she is a veteran in the political world and in the government world and knows her way around the system very, very well. So she is a key individual that will help pull his team together as we move forward. Lisa Peterson is another individual that I've known for a long time, and she has been with Mr. DeWine as his communication director for many, many years. So again, she's another person that is very experienced and knows the landscape very well in the state of Ohio and will be heading up a very important part of the administration. And then there's Leanne Corrin, who is been with Governor-elect DeWine for some time and will be the Director of Children's Initiatives. This is going to be a new cabinet-level position, which we understand is a new position. I think it's going to be a really good opportunity for us to become familiar with Leanne and work with her very closely, because much of what we do from the opiates and addiction side of things, prevention side of things, may fall within Leanne's purview. So she is an incredible individual that we've worked with before on many things and look forward to working with her in the future. Okay, flip it. The majority of things that we want to just basically bring to your attention today about the new administration is the governor-elect put out a proposal, which he called the 12-point plan to combat the state's opiate epidemic, as the top priorities of his administration in the very early first days. And so here I've listed out what are the things that are part of that 12-step plan. And I think the thing that will be important for us as advocates to look for is, while we know that opiates are a problem and they have caused a lot of destruction to our families and our communities and the individual lives, but we also know that the problem is much more than just opiates. It's a problem of addiction. So as we look at working with the new administration, I think it will be important for each and every one of us to figure out how we're going to be able to change that conversation and to change that dialogue into being just so much more than just one drug. And everything that he's listed in here are things that can apply to the full problem of addiction as well as to the opiate problem. We are going to, as you can look at them and read them here, as the different things that they are going to be. And I would encourage you to go back and take a look at these. These will be posted on in our legislative update so that you'll be able to see them. But we know that drug courts have been very important in the state of Ohio and continue to be, and we want to make sure that we continue to grow that drug court. We're looking at certainly need more treatment capacity in Ohio, no doubt about that. Certainly expanding the workforce is another such thing that we want to take a look at. When you look at this list of these things, again, it's much more than just opiates. We're talking about the full substance misuse problems that we have in the state of Ohio and also nationally. And so we encourage you to help with the changing of the dialogue. Here's the other last 6 steps in that 12-point plan, as you can see. That as you look at number 11, roll out a statewide drug prevention media campaign. This is something that we've been very excited about the possibility of. And then making sure that kindergarten through 12th grade students get some good, solid, evidence-based drug prevention education in Ohio schools. And so, again, I would encourage all of you to be familiar with this 12-point plan. Something of this type of a document that goes out very early in the campaign and is kept through the campaign will certainly become a signature piece of the administration as they take office in January. And it will be probably something that will be a benchmark for the first 100 days, which the governor usually goes through of an evaluation of how his or her administration is doing in the first 100 days. So we think this document is going to be very important and one that all of us should be very familiar with. Okay. I need to flip through here. Issue 1. It took a heavy defeat, and we're delighted about that. Took a heavy defeat last week, as we had talked about in a previous webinar. This bill that changed the Constitution had a lot of problems going in, and they were huge problems that needed to be looked at. First of all, it was the origin of the bill. The bill came and was proposed from people outside the state of Ohio and billionaires, which personally I would say is that I think our policy making needs to be done by the people and not by people who have a lot of money. And so I think it's important that it just has happened with this one that Ohioans get in and study what this really means for us, and that we make decisions based upon what's good for us and for Ohio, and not for someone that has lots of money that they can put towards something like this. So the origin of the bill was the problem. Allowing something like this to go into the state constitution doesn't allow the proper constraints to be able to do and manage good legislation. Every piece of legislation that has ever gone out has never gone out perfectly. It always needs to come back to the legislatures to be tweaked, to be changed with the changing times, because nothing stays consistent. There's always a flexing of policies. And so when you put something like this in the Constitution, it's there, it's solid, and you have to spend millions of dollars and millions of dollars to educate people about how we need to change something, which could be easily done within the legislature. And then this particular bill, on a more specific note, undermined, we felt, that the treatment and the law enforcement that allows for good, solid treatment for and recovery for individuals that suffer from this disease. It's not a one and done closed system that fits all individuals. It's a very personalized process for each individual as they discover and move towards their area of recovery. So I think that's something that we need to continue to look at in all legislation to honor that. Moving forward, we've had many, many individuals that have come out now and said we need, in fact, to look at moving forward and changing the system where it needs changed. I know the legislature has, in the last 2 General Assemblies, done many things to work on these bills and change the culture around treatment and recovery and the opiate epidemic. I think there's more yet to be done, and there are many people that have decided to take a look at doing it. I know that the OCAR, which is the Ohio Citizen Advocates for Addiction Recovery, is looking to work with their group of partners to figure out what they can weigh in as being lived experience and how they believe we can get up some good changes to our legislation and our rules and our policies to help those that are in recovery, in treatment and recovery. So they are looking to bring many people into the fold to help with this and start the dialogue with the next General Assembly and the legislators to make sure that we get some good solid changes within the laws in the state of Ohio. So stay tuned for that. We'll be looking and working with a variety of individuals as we move forward, and we want to be and should be a part of that conversation to make sure that we get to the right place in the state of Ohio. Likewise, the Senate president is looking at this too, and maybe looking at it in this final session here before the new General Assembly comes in January. He is looking at, during the election, there was Franklin County Prosecutor Ron O'Brien and Democratic City Attorney Zach Klein came together, two bipartisan individuals in a bipartisan manner came together to make sure that there was some options that would be ready to go forward with the hope that this legislation or this constitutional amendment would go down. And their process of what they did together is something that the Senate president really is interested in what they have coming up with and what they proposed, and he in fact may take it into the Ohio legislature, into the Ohio Senate, and look at sponsoring some legislation yet this year. And certainly if it doesn't happen this year, it sets the stage for it to go into the new General Assembly as well. So again, stay tuned on that. So while we have advocacy partners coming together to work on this, we also know that our legislators are also interested in coming together to work on this, and hopefully we will come up with some good solutions for Ohio. All right, we decided Lameduck Session is something we hear a lot about, and we are now officially in the Lameduck Session. And as I was preparing for this, I decided, now I have no idea where Lameduck came from. And of course, you can count on Wikipedia to give you just about any kind of information that you want. And therefore they did. So take it, figure out if this is true or not, but this is what Wikipedia said, is that this was originally a term that was applied in the 18th century in Britain to bankrupt businessmen who were considered as lame, in the sense that they were impaired of their powers, rendered them vulnerable, like a game bird injured by a shot. And I thought, well, that's kind of interesting. After all this time in the 18th century, this term is carried forward. By the 1830s, the usage of it extended into office holders who were already known to have a termination date to their civic service or their public service. And so it continues on even into our current culture in America, where we talk many times about the president as a lame duck when he can no longer run and getting ready to go out of office. And of course, now we are looking at being a lame duck session in the legislature, where that's exactly what's going to happen. Many of the people will not be coming back into the new General Assembly. There's some that have been elected, some that have been termed out. There's some that have retired. And so while be a mixture of new and old coming together for a brand new group in the new General Assembly. So those that are still doing the governance work in the state of Ohio have from now until December 31st, I believe it is, to finish up a lot of the bills that are still kind of hanging out there. And in fact, depending on how the election went, would determine on how robust the Lameduck Session would be. If there had been a change in the party that controlled the House and the Senate, then it would have been a very robust Lameduck Session, because those bills and legislation that they wanted to move forward would now become a priority, because they would be unsure as to whether they would be able to be taken up in the next General Assembly. But since we have kept the same basically parties predominance in both houses, it's going to be a rather light Lameduck Session now. At least that's the what they're proposing or predicting at this point in time. So it'll remain to be seen how it actually happens. But what we will do is that this week it started, and they'll be looking at. I encourage you, if you don't get the weekly update, to reach out and sign up for those through our website, because I'll talk about what bills they are looking at this week in the legislature. So if there's something there that's of interest to you. So they are back downtown again. It's hard to get a parking spot underneath the State House, which is my big thing, because they're all back in town working on it. And also, you may be wondering, every once in a while, they're still introducing new bills. And you think, well, why are they introducing new bills at this point in time? And some of the reasons for that is it's an issue that they feel, whoever it is in the legislature, feels really important. And sometimes to get a piece of legislation moving, it takes a couple tries to do it. And you need to introduce the whole concept to stakeholders, to other legislators, and to the administration. So some of the people now that are passionate about a subject they want to build to will introduce it now so that it will start to introduce it to all of the stakeholders and the people that will pay attention to it. And then we come starting to do study and be familiar with it. The bill will probably drop when they go into sign die. And what is sign die? Sign die is when the last House or the last Senate session happens, and it's the very last one of this General Assembly, and they therefore don't set a new session coming up. So when the session closes down, it's over, it's done, no more business will take in place. So at sometime in December, you'll hear the term sign die, and that means that is the House or the final Senate meeting, and it will close out this particular General Assembly. Very quick update on the Ohio Medical Marijuana Control Program. We had a Medical Marijuana Advisory Committee meeting last week. These bullet points here kind of tell you what were the highlights of that meeting. Marijuana product is from the smaller cultivators is starting to produce marijuana product now, but the big cultivators that will have the bulk of the product coming out won't be ready until mid-December or even into January and February. It just takes a while for the growing cycle to ramp up and to go through all of the process of getting it to the right maturity level and then going to processors or then getting tested. All of that piece is involved. And so once it gets up and moving, it should be a process that continues to grow and be consistent. There are 10 cultivators right now that are licensed and actually growing marijuana product at this point. 6 of them are the large processors and 4 of them are the smaller processors. The other 16 processors are still in the process of getting their facilities up and moving and working out the individual processes to get them completely licensed to go online to start growing and operating business. There are processors. 14 out of the 40 are now licensed and ready to start accepting the product to process into whether it be food or oil or patches or whatever the end product will be. We figure that again will be a slower process because immediately they'll want to get the raw materials directly into the dispensaries right away and then start bringing some into processors to get ready for future use for individuals. But right now we're looking to get the marijuana to the people that are patients that have a desire to use that in their treatment. Certificates, there are 5 testing labs that are ready to go to make sure that we can decide what's in the marijuana, make sure that people know that they're consumers that are educated about what it is that they're taking for their medical reasons. There's also 319 doctors that have certificates to recommend. And again, I think last time I told you that if the doctor has behind their name an MD, then a CTR, if the CT or OD and a CTR, that means that they're certified to recommend. CTR certified to recommend, which means they can certify to recommend marijuana. They cannot prescribe it, but they can recommend it. The qualifying, we have a number of qualifying conditions that have been set into legislation in 2016 when the legislation passed. Right now, we're in an open period where individuals and doctors and patients and basically the general public, if they wish to have another condition added to that list as a qualifying condition to receive marijuana, they can now submit that application to the state of Ohio through a process in the website and online, and there will be they'll walk you through what you need to do to have it. But it's important to have as much research and documentation as to why one thinks that would be a qualifying condition, they will have put together a team of experts that will examine all of those applications and make any decisions and recommendations of what new ones to submit. So that's pretty much what's happening in the world of Ohio right now in our legislative world. We are, as I said, in a time of transition and change with new administration. And whenever this time of change and transition, there's always hope for us to assess what we've done before, step back, take a look at what's important for us, and then put a game plan together to move forward to make Ohio even better. My colleagues, do you have anything?
Yes, this is Nathan Kretz again. Right now we don't have any questions, so while we wait for those to come in, I wanted to mention a couple small things. First of all, that email address you see there, mseidel@preventionactionalliance.org. If you if you're not getting the advocacy alerts, if you email that address, Marcie will forward it to myself, and we'll get you added to that list so that you can get those updates and get invited to more webinars like this one. Also, the one thing I wanted to share, I've noticed in the last couple of days, a lot more news articles coming out hinting that the FDA is considering a ban on flavored e-cigarette products to get them off of shelves and out of stores. And I saw this morning that the city of Chicago is actually suing various e-cigarette retailers because they allege that they have allowed underage sales to occur and that they've been fueling this epidemic of underage use. I'm going to pass over the phone to JP, and JP will be able to tell you a little bit about some records, I believe.
Hi, everyone. This is JP, Jean-Peter Val, but JP for short. I just want to give a follow-up to the point that Marcie made regarding the Lameduck Session and why some members might be introducing legislation now this late in the game. One of those reasons is because of record keeping. Now, if a bill once a bill is introduced, that becomes public record. However, any bill ideas, bill drafts, bill correspondence that has not been officially introduced in the General Assembly actually gets lost more oftentimes than saved due to administrative changes and things like that. This is something that I've encountered in my time at the General Assembly, where you have a constituent calling in asking for a piece of legislation that was not officially introduced by a previous member who no longer exists, who no longer has a position in the General Assembly, and receiving those records or trying to dig up those records becomes a hassle because we need permission from that previous member in order for the Legislative Service Commission to dig up those files if they have them on hand. So that's one big reason why you have some people introducing legislation this late in the game. It just makes it very easy for the next set of senators or representatives to pick up where they left off if those bills have been officially introduced. So that's just a side note that I want to add.
There you go, the real lives of legislative aides. We do have a question here from Christina Latta-Landefeld. I hope I pronounced that correctly. She wants to know if we can speak to the House bill about health education, if there are any changes or just what we know about it at this time. Marcie?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good question and one that I think is really important. We don't know much about it right now other than it's been introduced and it hasn't come back up at this point to continue hearings on it. So I think at this point it's just kind of stalled, but I will spend some time digging into it this week and make sure that we mention it next week in our legislative update to see where it is. I do believe that this is something that the new administration will be interested in, and it certainly is something that a lot of the advocacy groups around the state of Ohio will be adding to their agenda to bring forward to the General Assembly and to the new governor.
Thank you very much, Marcie. So stay tuned for that. With that, we're going to go ahead and end this webinar. Thank you all very much for joining us. We know that you have many options for how to spend your Tuesday morning, and we appreciate that you decided to spend them with us. Again, if you have any questions, please feel free to email us. You can either use that email address there, or you can email us, all of us directly at contact@preventionactionalliance.org. You can also call us at any time at 614-540-9985. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining us. Goodbye.